So, hopefully we're live and you hear me. So, if there's anyone there, just write something on the chat and we can continue. Okay. Hello. So, let's start. And I'm going to be checking the chat, as we go along. Now, since this is the first live stream, you know what? Let's start a new project entirely. And let's change the folders. Let's say maybe over here. So let's call this Space Colony. Same. Obviously, you probably understand what this means. Okay, let's create the project. We're going to go easy at first with it. And then as we go along, we're going to start building and adding a few more things. Now, because it is things we have seen in the past, I'm going to go slightly fast with it. You should just, if you have any questions or whatever, just ask them on the chat, and I'll get to them once I'll be checking the chat. Okay, there is some delay between chat and the stream, so keep that in mind. Let's see, let me find my colony seams. I'm going to open up a few scripts we had before, mainly the Pathfinder, so we have this before. Let's close all of them actually. Okay, awesome. So, okay, now Space Colony. What does Space Colony means? I think it was called Starbound, the game we're going to try to make. Well, not the exact same game, but yeah, no, yeah, okay, maybe not Starbound. I guess it's called Space Haven. Okay, I'm pretty sure that you know.
Heading over to Kickstarter.
The type of game. I'm going to show you the video now. Basically something like this. We have a game. You set up, yeah, okay, this can come later, but basically you build up your space colony, your space station, and so on. We can move on multiple stuff like that. Yeah, obviously we're not going to have that much art and stuff like that. Okay, so that's the idea. So let's get started. Ask questions on the chat if you have. If you can't see me, or if we have any difficulties, just tell me on the chat and I'll see what's going to happen. Hopefully you can see me. So, as always, we are starting with our scripts folder, and let's start with managers or whatever. Okay, obviously we're going to be based on a grid, so we're going to start with a grid manager. Let's open it up, but I would like to create a few other scripts as well, so we have them ready. Let's wait till actually Visual Studio opens. Change the title, let's see. I don't know if it's actually changed the title now, but we'll see, I guess. Yeah, it's actually Visual Studio that's not responding. Unity is working. Well, waits for. Oh, come on. For someone that's using a state machine loosely based on your lightweight state machine, how will you integrate a dialog system having trouble figuring out when the dialog ends exit state? Now, well, the dialog ends is basically an event, so I will add an event system, but I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't know if the lightweight state machine is going to help you with that. I think the behavior editor or some version of the behavior editor will change that. I don't know what fungus is, sorry. Okay, now we have Visual Studio. Let's create our node. Let's open this up. Going to add the namespace. We're not masters here. Okay, this is not going to derive from one behavior, but this is just going to be a class. And we can't use a vector2 integer anymore, or a vector3 even integer. So that's nice. And so let's say position or grid position, I guess. And then we can have a vector3 for the actual wall position. Okay. Now, yeah, okay, we can go with that. The only problem that I don't exactly like is if I want to change one thing on this vector, we will have to create a new vector, but we'll see how it goes in the future. Grid manager. Now, well, I don't want to do this like the colony sim where we just created stuff and we had we had a grid that it could be, you could circumvent the entire globe and stuff like that. It got way out of hand, and I didn't actually like that. Okay, so we're going to keep this simple. So we're going to have a 3D array for grid. Okay, let's set up some of max x, or you know what, let's use vector3 integer for that. I'm going to say grid count or grid size, better yet. We can also initialize this. So let's do 30 by 10 and 30. You can of course do anything you like here, but we'll just go with this for now. So on start, or better yet, in its own method, we're going to go and create a new grid. So our grid will be new node, grid size dot x, grid size dot y, grid size dot z. Okay, then for x, grid size dot x, y, grid size dot y, and z, grid size dot z. Okay, as always, we're going to do new node, and you know what, let's simplify this. Let's create a constructor for our node, and we're going to say vector3 integer. Let's just add position, say grid position equals p. Now if you want to be, you know, more specific, not more specific, if you would like to be a little bit more how C# says, or well, the manual says you're going to be setting up things. Okay, this is a little bit safer, but this is just a node position, so you know it's not really going to make a lot of or a huge difference. And let's do the same for this, for the wall position, and this will be get, yeah, that will be more correct based on the coding standards from C#. Okay, so that will be wall position, wall position, wall position, which means on the grid manager not only we have to pass two new vector trees, grid position. Actually, I don't like creating a new one, so let's say 0, grid position X, grid position Y, grid position Z equals Z, similar with the vector 3, the wall position dot X will be X multiplied by the scale, which we don't actually have. So we need float for scale XZ and public float for scale on the Y. Scale on the Y can be 1 point, and scale on the Z, well, usually you have about 2 meter size, so let's go with 2 meter size. So X by XZ, Z by scale XZ, and Y equals Y multiplied by scale Y. And we have our grid position and wall position, and we can add this back to our grid. Okay, X, Y, Z. So data-wise, that's our grid. Any questions? Let's see how we're doing on the chat. Yeah, there's some slight delay, so if you have questions, feel free to ask, and I'll get them every 5 minutes or so. Yeah, dialog system is actually in the plans. Quest system, I think at some point I'm going to make one, but I'm usually going more general purpose or higher purpose. But the inventory system is actually something that was really nice, so I made it as a simple as its own series as well. Okay, so let's continue, since it doesn't seem that anyone has any questions. So we have our grid. Of course, we can't actually visualize any of this. We won't be seeing it even if we add it on start, which means we're now going to need a prefab to visualize it. Okay, so that will be our node prefab. And let's create an empty game object. 2D object, and let's make it as, let's just add a quad now. I'm going to try it later. Let's change it. So set this to 90 degrees, and this will be our base for our node. Now, so that we can actually see what we're doing, I'm going to scale it down by 95 by 95. Okay, so let's rename this to node prefab. Let's create some folders, prefabs, and drop this here. Actually, because I'm kind of bored to drag and drop references all the time, I'm just going to make a resources folder, and I'm going to drop that in here, and we can delete this. Now, actually, we have a collider in here, So let's get rid of it. Awesome. Let's see, space colony. Now, let's delete that and just say node prefab equals resources dot load node prefab. Just make sure you have the correct name on that. Okay, and it will play normally. So now we're going to be creating a game object. Node prefab. And we can place that onto the same position as our node.wall position. Okay, I don't think we're going to need any other reference, and this is just visual for now. We're not really going to be using, since it's space, we don't actually have to know, we don't actually have to visualize empty space. It's empty, it's already visualized. And I think it's going to spawn somewhere around here. We'll see. We're going to fix the camera later. And yeah, it will be lovely if I've actually added the script inside the scene. Okay. So that's the scale. You can change the grid size from here and you will get different view. Okay, so basically this will be your level. Maybe 10 floors is way too much. Although we're not really going to be visualizing any of this, since as I said, it's space. Awesome. Now let me think. Yeah, maybe we should visualize, or no, I think we should do the visualization a little bit different later, if it comes to that. Okay, so this will be our empty space in this case. So we would like to actually place some stuff on it, place some units, do anything with that. For that, I'm going to create a new script which we can call mouse operations. And you know what? First, let's change this. Let's go on the grid manager. Let's change this to 3. I think 3 for now is just going to be enough. And I want to place the camera at the correct position as well. So let's find our camera. Okay, and let's say somewhere around here. Let's do align with view. That's kind of horrible. Let's set this to orthographic. About 45 degrees and 45 degrees. Let's move it back. Set this. Okay, something like that. We're probably going to change it in the future. We'll see. Okay, so I'm going to copy the setting, copy component, set that, set this to orthographic, and paste the component values. If you want to be more space-like, you can change the background, and instead of this, just add solid color. Awesome. So let's go into space colony, and I don't actually want this anymore. So let's start with our mouse operations. The mouse operations are going to be on start, are going to start working, on start. Actually, I think only on update we should care about them. So for now, I'm just going to have a public game object for something, an indicator or whatever, just to know where our mouse is over. And let's do void detect node. Okay. Now, generally, and I think pretty much always, we are doing a recast hit. Okay, oops. Recast hit, recast. Yeah, okay. So ray camera dot main screen point to ray input mouse position. Okay, raycast hit if physics raycast ray out hit, distance can be whatever. Okay, so with this, if we hit a collider, we know we're probably going to land onto on a node. Okay, but we still do not have we still actually do not have any collisions into our level. Okay, so after creating the grid, we should also create the collisions for this. So create collision, and I think I'm going to go only with one collision, which depending on the floor you're currently in, it's going to come up and down. Okay, so create collision, we basically need a game object, an empty game object, geo, new game object, geo, add component, box collider. Now, because we're going to access the box collider values, we're going to also get that. Perfect. And now let's see the size. I think the size will be half of this because it counts it from the center. So let's see box.size. I think it's going to expect a vector 3. Okay, so new vector 3. Grid size dot x subdivide by 2, but also multiplied by the scale xz. Okay, y can be something minimal, 0.1f for example, and then grid size dot z subdivide by 2 multiplied by scale xz. Then we need to also place the game object at the correct position, which that will be the center of your grid. So technically should be the same value with this. So maybe let's do vector 3 grid, or let's just say size. Let's copy this entirely. Let's change the size to this, and for transform.position, instead of just size, I'm going to say size.y, set that to 0, and the position will just be size. Okay, so let's add that, create collision, and let's see how the chat is going on. And minimize that. Actually, I think we're only going to get one game object now, which is going to have the collision, and here it is. Okay, and this is our scene now. Will be our collision. As you can see, we kind of hit some offsets. Like if we're here, you won't be able to select over here and over there. So maybe we need to think this a little bit differently. So instead of having a simple game object that's going to move, that's going to just be static, I think I'm just going to make one that is going to be following the camera. Okay, so but first let's see our chat. So there is a question on a side question. I do wonder on achievements. Do you request something from the console or PC platform to allow achievements and go to their system so the player has it recorded like the PlayStation? Well, it depends on the platform, obviously. So if you have, for example, on PlayStation you register your accounts. Even if you do not register accounts, then even if you do not make an account, they probably store device ID or something like that, you know how it is on phones, and from that you can store, you basically have a database and you can store accounts there. But I think you have to make an account with PlayStation, even if it's just a local one, so you can just store there. It's just basically the simplest of databases. If you think of achievements inside a list, it's basically saving a dictionary. Well, of course I'm way simplifying this, it's probably using an SQL, but you know, if you say index of 5, is it true or false? So that means you have an achievement or not. Now, how do you determine if something is an achievement? Well, that entirely depends on your game, I guess, and what will you be doing with that. Okay, there's some praise. I love you too. Hello, so why I'm still using 2.18? Well, because it works mostly. Most of the projects I have, not just for the channel, for freelancing and stuff like that, we are set on this version since we know it's stable at least. It's not always stable, but it helps. I'm probably going to go with 2019 at some point in the future, I'm sure of that. Will the stream be saved? Yes. Well, hopefully it's saved on YouTube. We'll see about that. Okay, so let's continue. We have our grid manager then, and okay, now we kind of want to start creating a little bit some logic with our camera. And you know what? Here's one way to simplify what I just did. So if we remove the create collision entirely, I guess that's the point. That's the problem when you are overthinking things. You're not always making progress if you are overthinking things. Okay, so let's say this is a game object. It's just an empty game object at the center of our world. Okay, if we take this and call this camera holder and parent our camera inside, we can take the camera first and reset it as well. Let's set 45 and 45, and this now can go back as much as you want. Oops, that's not back. Something like that. Okay, it's on orthographic, so it doesn't matter if it's here or if it's here. If it doesn't clip through the level or the wall below, it's fine. Awesome. So we have camera holder and main camera. Here's the thing, if I add another empty game object below this and call it collision, and from that collision I'm going to add a box collider, just make it super big, or not even big, it can just be something that is not seen through the camera. Okay, something like that. Let's say 0.1. So now moving the camera holder, when we actually move the camera, is going to move the collision as well, because it's a moving collider though. Okay, that means were you moving a collider, doesn't matter why you're using it. Okay, you always need to have a rigid body, and because we don't want to be affected by physics, we're going to say is kinematic. We don't really care about anything else for this. The alternative of course for that will be to just make an even bigger one, more than any. Actually no, you still want to move the collision because we're also going to have floors, different floors. Okay, so yeah, that's the way to go. So as you can see, right out of the bat, we just cleared up our code even more. However, let's say we want to have a camera holder or camera manager or whatever, and we want to place it onto the center of our grid. Okay, and for that I'm going to actually make its own script for this camera manager, just so that we have encapsulated logic and we're going component based instead of just having a center of row, just having one script that controls everything. So we are going to need both update and start. We can have this as a singleton as well, but I think we're not really going to be needing a lot of from the camera manager. So okay, let's leave it. Now, one change I'm going to do is I'm going to move the creation of this inside the awake, and because it is a script we're going to be using a lot, I'm going to make the grid manager static, and I'm going to actually create the singleton pattern for this. Okay, singleton then equals this. So I can just go on the camera manager here, and actually let's say the grid manager, yeah, the grid is public, so we can access that. Actually we only need the grid, but we do need two more things. We need to get a node via the integer x, integer y, integer z. We do need that. X, Y, Z. Let's do some overloading, not polymorphism. Get node via vector 3 integer. So basically that's going to be returning get node p.x, p.y, p.z, and let's make get node via a normal vector 3. So that's where the tricky thing comes. It's basically we need an integer for the x, which will be our p.x subdivided by our scale xz, and all that math f round or floor, or I think floor will probably be better in this case, since we know our collision is always going to be at a specific place. Okay, let's duplicate this 2 times z, y, scale x, y, and then this will be your y, this will be your z, and simply return get node x, y, z. Okay, so we are returning this. I don't know how we are on the chat. You see you guys are silent, so I'm guessing you like what you're seeing. Okay, so we have our helper methods now. Now on our camera manager, let's speed this up. We can say okay, so here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say find me the node, the sender node, and that will be grid manager singleton get node. Actually, you know what, let's save the grid manager here, gm grid manager singleton. Okay, grid manager gm dot size, grid size dot x subdivide by 2. Sender node, I'm just going to hard code it at, well, okay, let's do this, let's do the same thing. Grid size dot y subdivide by 2, gm grid size dot z subdivide by 2, and this will give you your center node. So that means transform dot position equals sender node dot wall position. Now, because we are going to be accessing the transform inside update, because we are going to be updating the camera and what we are actually seeing and so on, I'm always, or usually when I remember to do it, I'm storing my transform first, because if you are using the shortcut, which is the transform for here, it goes through the entire hierarchy every time you're calling it. So with this, we're basically caching it, and you're using that. So this will place a camera right at the center of our screen, of our grid, not our screen. Okay, now to test this, we can go onto a grid manager and let's enable back creating the game objects. But first, you know what? Let's enable this, because let's enable our mouse operations. We're going to store our grid manager here. We're simply going to be using our singleton. So, one thing we forgot is we are not checking if we are out of bounds on the grid manager inside our node, because all of these methods are actually using this node. We can check if x is lower than 0 or x is higher than grid size dot x minus 1, or y is lower than 0, or y is higher than grid size dot y minus 1, or z is lower than 0, or z is higher than grid size dot z minus 1. Okay, in that case, return me null. We need to know if we're null or not, so that we can just, you know, yeah, basically so that we know when we are out of the grid and whatever. For our mouse operations, then we can get back a node grid manager get node hit dot point, and if node is not null, just place the indicator on that node's transform dot position will be, actually we can name this as a transform, and we can access the position right away. And I'm going to be putting it on the node's wall position instead of the hit dot point, so we know it's always going to be on top of our grid. Okay, so let's create now an indicator or something. Let's make this a sphere. We don't really care for the sphere collider, and we can add the mouse operation on the same object, and we can drop this as well over here. And I think for a camera holder we also need to add our camera manager. Awesome, and hit play. Okay, and now we are seeing the top layer, the top level, the top floor, but our grid is actually here. Okay, we are on the middle layer, so let's make it that each object is placed under its own floor, and with the middle mouse or the higher mouse, or you know, the middle mouse with the mouse wheel, actually you can change floors. The moment Visual Studio, you know, starts responding again. So let's see onto our chat. Given how bad is the singleton's reputation, what are your tips to use, not to use them? Well, use them wisely, first of all. I don't think they have a bad reputation. They usually tend to get overused and used in the wrong way. One thing that you can fall victim to with singletons is the the circular reference problem, which is basically, or not circular reference. So let me give you one small example. Let's say you're using it on a project, maybe it's multiplayer or whatever, and you are missing a singleton because you just changed your scene and you forgot to add it on don't destroy on load. So you're getting another reference because you have destroyed your game objects. One way to avoid it, of course, is don't destroy, but you can end up with a lot of game objects you're actually not destroying, so at the end, what's even the point of using it? Okay, you can circumvent other things, but I think depending on what you do, you select your pattern. In my case, I know we're only going to have one grid manager, and if you want to avoid the circular references or missing references because you have destroyed game objects and stuff like that, is instead of storing the grid manager here, you can always be using grid manager singleton right away down here. Okay, so in that case you can have, well, of course, if you have another reference, you always, doesn't matter if you're going to have this method or you're going to access it directly, you're still going to have another reference. But in this way you are actually using less memory than this way, because you are always using the static variable. So let's leave it like this then. Okay, and so you always get the final version of the singleton and not the store one. So even if you have more than one singletons, then the stored case, yeah, you don't actually have anything stored, so that means you're always getting the final version. You'll notice that error, or well, the error I usually find is that it happens when you are changing a lot of scenes. For example, you're going to have a lot of singletons, say, in your main menu. You're going to get inside the game, you're going to leave the game, and you're going to be back at the main menu. Now, if the singletons you have there are going to load again, okay, if a game object that is persistent between your scenes doesn't actually, or is using a store reference for the singleton, it won't update it, because you will, of course, only store the singleton at start. It won't update it, so it's going to be looking back at the old singleton, which is now probably already destroyed because the scene changes, stuff like that. Okay, it's pretty specific to find those errors, but as I said, I don't think it comes down to the pattern. It's always how you use the pattern that brings the errors. I mean, patterns are there for a reason. Anyway, so, and yeah, I actually know why you're saying it has bad reputation, but again, the community usually, you know, forgets everything they know before just because something new it looks more fancier. That's not the proper way to do this. The proper way to do this is to find first what you want to do, okay, and why you're doing it, and then select the pattern. Anyway, so we have our mouse operations, we have a grid manager. Now let's go faster. We're going to be creating a list of oops, not lists, obviously not lists, a list of game objects, which we're going to be saying floor objects or floor parents. We don't actually need to have this public, but whatever. Oops. Okay, then for each y we are adding, or actually, you know what, we already have the y, so we can say game object, let me think. Yeah, okay, let's try this game object, geo new game object, and name this as y, and I think I'm going to bring the y after the z, so I'm going to take that and add it. No, that's going to run on all this. No, that's going to run a lot of time. So I think I'm going to move this first. Then we first create the floors and then we create the rest. Okay, let's move this forward a bit. And I'm going to take this, I'm going to name this floor parent. Okay, and I'm going to add it inside our floor parents. Floor parents dot add floor parent. Then all of these game objects, I'm going to parent them under the floor parent, the transform. Let's select all of that, quick format. Okay, so now we have all our objects we are creating under our floor. So we can start visualizing. We can say public void visible nodes, or visible floor, or change floor, I guess. Change floor integer y, or yeah, okay, we can say, sure, let's use it like this. So first of all, we're going to close, actually no, we're just going to go through floor objects or floor parents dot count -1 if floor parents, actually if y is lower than or equals than y, floor parents dot I game object set active false. Oops, no, we actually want this true. Else floor parents I game object set active false. Okay, so we're going to be using this from the mouse operation. Let's see, and I don't remember the mouse wheel, what we had on the mouse wheel. Let's actually see our inputs, project settings, inputs, axis, mouse scroll wheel. Okay, and I think it's an axis, so plus colony, detect node, let's do void handle floors, and we can do float axis or mouse wheel input get axis mouse wheel mouse scroll wheel. Okay, if mouse wheel is less than, let's do 0.5, and I think we're going to have to make a bool, actually, yeah, it is an axis, so change floor, okay, so we're going to say if not change floor, if mouse wheel less than 0.5, then you're going to change your floor, you're going to increment. Otherwise, if mouse wheel higher than 0.5, and this actually needs to be minus 0.5. Okay, and let's say bool, actually no, we don't need to say that, we can just check if mouse wheel is not equal to 0. Now this works because it's hard-coded values based from the axis, even if they are floats. And okay, then we're going to say bool increment equals false. For this it will stay false. For this we'll say increment equals true. And actually this is kind of wrong, so it should probably be like this then, because we're only checking for this. So we need to store our index for the floor. Let's do this right now. Public, actually, you know what, let's do this in here. Let's do this down here, and we can say integer floor index, change floor, change floor actual, and public void change floor. And we need to know if we increment or decrease. Bool increment. If or actually let's do if floor index plus plus if increment else floor index minus minus. If floor index lower than 0, obviously it's going to stay 0. If floor index is greater than our floor parents.count minus 1, floor index floor parents.count minus 1. Awesome. And then change floor actual with the floor index. If you want to hard code the actual floor, for example at start, you can add one more thing, but I think I'm just going to say change floor on start, change floor actual, grid size dot y subdivide by 2, so we are on the middle floor. Okay, now on the mouse operations we have this increment equals true, and then here we can say grid manager change floor increment. And if we also need to change the floor to set this to true, and if this is true, if mouse wheel is back to 0, change floor equals false. Hopefully this will work, we'll see. As you see, we don't actually need this anymore, since if it's higher than 0 and it's not 0, and if it's the other case, then that means increment will start as false. Awesome. So let's try this. Let's close it. Hopefully this will work. Minimize that and hit play. And it didn't work because we forgot to, of course, add it inside the update. Awesome. Close that. Let's see how we are on time. We are about 52 minutes. And it still doesn't. Okay, so it goes. Yeah, what am I even writing there? Anyway, let's fix the issues we have, because we kind of did some stupid. Anyway, I'm not going to use profanity. We need to know the floor parent instead of just hard coding y. This parents them under there. Okay, and the changing of the floors doesn't actually work. Set active less or equals. That will be if 0. Let's say all of them will be false, but if I is lower than y, enable it back again. Say it back.log y. Am I on Twitch also? Well, I thought this software will stream both on Twitch and on YouTube, but I guess it doesn't, so I actually don't know. I think there is some other software, XSplit, that does that. I'm going to have to look on it. This is just a first live stream. Okay, now thing is, we are getting okay, yeah, this works, but we do not move we can move on the final level, and we do not move the collision actually. So close that, delete that. For moving also on the final, we can add y as well, equals, not y. And since this changes now, we also need to place the collision. We're having this on the mouse operations though, so that's a bit of a bummer. Actually, we don't even have it anywhere. We just keep it under the camera manager. Okay, so it's an easy fix for that. You can say on your grid manager, return me, for changing the floor, return me a float for the Y position. Okay, so basically all we have to do is return, okay, a cookie for anyone that's going to find it without me spelling it, but I'm going to just go forward and not wait for the latency to catch up. So I'm going to say return me Y by scale Y. Okay, so with this I can go now on my mouse operation, and I know that I'm changing the floor here, and I can say float height equals change floor, so on and so on, and I can have my vector 3 as my camera position. Actually no, that's not the camera manager, that's the camera manager. So I actually want to capture my camera manager from my mouse operations. That will be public camera manager. Actually, why should I add it? Okay, let's add it via public. We'll just drag and drop it, doesn't matter. And I'm just going to hack it because I'm kind of bored. I'm going to say camera manager equals camera dot main dot transfer get component in parent camera manager. And this will work because I know my main camera, or my camera that's tagged with the main camera, is under my game object that has the camera manager script, which means I'm going to just store it there without even drag and dropping the camera manager onto my inspector. Okay, so we have our height, then that means camera manager dot transform dot m transform, or transform, I guess. We can make this public if we want to be using this, but it doesn't matter since it's a single call, so it's not really that much of a, doesn't make that much of a difference. So camera manager dot transform dot, or dot m transform dot position, and we can assign a position here. But first I can just take the vector 3 for the position it currently has, and transform dot position, and then change the y to the height, and then just apply back the position, and it's also going to move our camera. One small issue, it's not going to run the first time we run this, it's not going to change, so I'm going to have to think something about this, which is basically have this as, or we could, I guess, make a method. Yeah, okay, let's make it this. So let's say public float get floor height, or current floor height, if you will. So this will be returning us floor index multiplied by scale on the y, and you can just do this. It's a method. Okay, so back to the camera manager. On start, you have your position. Yeah, this actually will place you on the middle, so I think it's not even needed right now because this place, yeah, let's go with this and we'll see. Because I think it's not needed because we are already loading the middle floor and we are also moving the camera holder to be at the center on the middle floor as well. So I think we are saved with that. Okay, going up and down. Now, technically you can't actually see much of a difference, especially since we are moving the camera. So let's move the camera away and let's away of the camera manager, move it here. Now, something's going to happen that is going to give us an error. And of course, that is the little hack I did. Now it's not going to work because we do not actually have the main transform under the camera. Okay, so we're going to have to stop being lazy and add the public camera manager here. And I will have to drag and drop this here. Or I could have made the camera holder a singleton, since we know there's only going to be one camera holder inside our level. Okay, and yeah, that's not placing it on the center, but it's going to have to do for now. And as you can see, I can move my floors. Of course, it's never going to disable the first floor, but I am on the top floor, I'm on the lower floor, and I'm on this floor as well. Okay, so that's basically the base system for moving up and down in space. Depending of the size you have, of course, it can change. Let's move this inside. And we probably don't want to have, and here, because our size is at 10, you will see that it starts clipping on the end or on the bottom of our screen. One way to fix this will just be to move back our camera even more. Okay. Now technically, once we add back our, once we add our art and stuff like that, you won't really want to disable the top floor just like that. We should fade it out and so on and so on. Okay, but for now I think it's just a great base to move forward with what we want to be making with this. And I still haven't decided if we're going to go full 2D or 3D. We're going to have to figure out this at some point. But for now we can just, just stay on building up systems. And how are we on chat? Do you have any questions and so on? We are close to an hour, and I think it went well as for the first live stream. Yeah, we didn't actually do anything that we haven't seen before or haven't done, so hope you understand that we're not always doing new things. Everything we're doing has been done before, and we have done it before. So I'm going to wait till the chat catches up and we'll see how you guys are doing. I'm going to play with the different latency settings in the future, and we'll see which works best for that. Let's say yeah, I think latency is about 30 seconds, so let me write Yes, I'm going to set up some actually stream schedule and stuff like that. Once we clear up, I'm going to have to do a pause on the streams on August because I'm going to be in Norway. But yeah, the plan is to actually have a regular stream schedule, and we're also going to be making other things that are not programming. I'm going to try, create maybe some animations, maybe some art or whatever. I don't know how that's going to go because I'm not really that much of an artist. But yeah, that's the idea. Maybe somebody will start modeling their own stuff or making their own animation because they see me, the same way you're watching me create games or write code. Maybe it will inspire you to create your art as well and stuff like that. I do have the turn-based series. I think it's going to turn entirely or for the most part as a live stream series as well. I do have some other series I would like to do on live stream, and yeah, I think I'm also going to make some Patreon specific live streams, maybe Q&As and stuff like that. I'm going to have to think about it, but yeah, the idea is still continue to do all the videos I was doing the same format we were doing before, but for the live streams are going to be a little bit different. We're also going to be doing the live streams, and I'm going to be adding them on the site, and same with the project as well. It's just that the live streams, given the format of the live streams, probably it's going to be on a little bit slower pace. When do I recommend the lightweight state machine and when the behavior editor? When the project allows it, basically. Well, the thing is with the behavior editor, it's a little bit too heavy for my taste, and I've actually stopped using it, if you noticed, on my series, because I like to have the approach a little bit better. I still see it a little bit like, like node programming. Well, visual scripting, not programming. Like visual scripting, you can do a lot of things with them, but I think if you just write your own code, sometimes it's going to be faster or it will be more flexible. Now, yeah, I still like the behavior editor a lot, but I think as a use, for the use we did it, at least, was more of an obstacle rather than freeing our hands. On the other hand, the lightweight state machine was also super fast, was also pretty cool, but I still think, yeah, we still keep using it. But I still think if you're not going to have a lot of states, and most games will actually just require a few states, not that many. So that's why I've actually went with a component state machine, so I can switch between the lightweight state machine and the component state machine. But yeah, let's say if we have a game that has too many states, for example, I guess GTA could be a game that has a lot of states. You can drive, you can fly an airplane, you can swim, you can maybe dig around, maybe some other type of game actually. Yeah, that you will need a state machine there, or at least a more flexible state machine, rather than having 20 components on your model behaviors. Okay, so it really depends, as always, depends what you want to do, and then you decide how and what pattern you should follow, if you're going to have a state machine, and so on and so on. At least that's my opinion, of course. So, if you do not have any other questions, I'm going to close the stream. As always, thank you for coming, thank you for supporting me on doing all these things. I see the live streams as a new era for the channel as well, mostly because you're also going to be able to ask questions right away, and we're going to be seeing, and we're going to take our projects to the next level with the live streams. Of course, for me to continue to be able to do all of this, consider supporting me on Patreon, so that we can keep making a lot more videos, more series, and I'm pretty sure you know how much time it takes for this. So I'll see you guys on and girls on the next one. Have a good one.